Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to Illinois Stories. I'm Mark McDonald in Hillsborough on the square, in fact, right across the street from the Montgomery County Courthouse. And right here is where a group of Montgomery County residents have put together a most interesting website that you've ever seen in honor of our veterans of the U.S. military. Some of the veterans we talked to today are World War II veterans, but others, I mean, this website that we're going to show you today is open to veterans of all the wars and to honor them and actually to help them meet each other and to network together. So we've brought you here so you can see how this website works and introduce you to some of the folks who put this together. And Michael Morgan, I guess you're the man behind this. You had some help, and we're going to meet those folks as well. But what you do for a living is you design websites and put these kind of things together. Correct. And you thought to myself, you know, this isn't available to people who want to hear veterans' stories.
That's correct. I was actually at a town hall meeting for a congressman, and the question was brought up during the congressman's watch, because he was newly elected, what would he do to help the veterans? And he pointed out that, you know, he would help them with their hospitalization and anything and everything to do with living as a veteran. And someone also made mention that the Library of Congress is cataloging the veterans' stories. And owning my own web design company and being a web designer, I thought, that gives me an interesting thought. So I thought about doing the veterans' stories, creating a website where they could go, they could post their own stories, they could post their images, then everyone and anyone could see them and reflect on their time of service. So someone pointed out, someone who was there by the name of Marshall Cassabaum. I didn't know Marshall, but I went up and introduced myself. Come to find out, she had already done something like this, very similar to this, in her grade school class. So I knew I had found the right person to help me out with it. And then Marshall and I kind of grinned, and we thought, well, if we're going to have a website about the veterans, maybe we ought to include a veteran. So we both looked around the room, and we saw Will Tackaberry there. We knew Will's working with the veterans and all the things he's done for the veterans in the community. And as they say, the rest was history. We asked Will, and he was just elated that we asked him, and that's how it all got started. Story.
Okay, so today we get to meet Marshall and Will, and you, and some of the veterans whose stories are on the website. Correct. And we get a chance to look at this website, which is called My Military Hero.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
That's exactly right.
Let's take a look.
Okay. Mark, this is the home page of My Military Hero, and it's mymilitaryhero.us. We wanted to get .com, but it was taken, so we decided on the patriotic US. The home page just has kind of a welcome area where we can talk about the stories and my buddies. We also have an area over here to the right to where the veterans can click on and upload the stories to us. And then from here down, it's more or less a tribute to the veterans in that we show different pictures of military service. And we got the idea after we got the site up and going that we would honor a veteran each month. So if you wait till the veteran comes up and mouse over his picture, you can actually click on that and go to his story. Okay.
There's the hero of the month, Lamar Hartman.
Lamar Hartman is our hero of the month for March.
And he's from around here, isn't he?
He is from around here, yes he is. If you click on that, it takes you right to Lamar's story. So we change those once a month.
Let's say that I'm visiting this site. I don't know you from Adam or anything, but I want to go ahead and hear some of their stories. Where do I go straight to?
Okay. Well, up here at the buttons, you'll click on Stories. We'll go to the Stories page, and we have a brief introduction, and then we can search by surname. For example, let's do Mr. Hartman. Okay. We'll find the H's.
Okay, he was the Soldier of the Month, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
And we can click on H. We can go right to his story.
There's Lamar Hartman.
Find him by going right to his story.
And if you click on that, his story comes up.
Correct.
Okay. Now let's say I'm interested. Let's go back and say I want to go to, I'm interested in the Pacific, for instance.
Okay.
World War II.
Okay, so we've got branch of service and conflict, but for Pacific, we would go to World War II, and we would find Pacific, highlight that, click search. Then it would take us to a page that's dedicated for just the World War II guys that fought in the Pacific Ocean. And again, there's Mr. Hartman, so we click on his link, and again, it takes us right to him. So we're actually going to the same page, Mark, but it gives the veterans and the veterans' family many options to find their loved one that served.
Okay, let's try something different. Let's go to World War II.
Okay.
And let's go to Europe, I guess. Is Europe a selection? Yeah, let's go to Europe. And see who comes up. Okay. Now, Clyde Brubaker. How about Clyde? Let's click on Clyde.
All right, let's go to Clyde.
And I'm being a little gratuitous here because we're going to interview Clyde today and we're going to hear his story, but this is a perfect example of what would come up if you had an individual that you were searching for.
Yes, that's exactly right. It'll come up, it'll tell a story. Most of the veterans have also donated a picture of themselves that we'll include here. And then we also have another place on the website where they can upload pictures to if they like.
Okay.
So, but at least we'll have one picture of them on this page.
And some of them bring other pictures and documents in for you to scan in, and you put those in as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Now, you can also use video with this.
Yes, you can. To find the videos, and we don't have very many videos yet. We only have 2 that we've converted to videos. You'll click on the images, and the 2 people that we have, their stories in video are, go back to the Army, because that's Mr. Brubaker. So he's uploaded one image here.
I see you interviewed him.
But we interviewed him, and we used green screen to put video behind him of, that's actually a B-26, which is what he flew.
Neat.
And then here's one of the pictures he's uploaded, which I'll show you. Click on that, and that pops right up there.
Okay, let's go back to select another one. Let's select another Army from World War II, Europe.
Okay. So we'll go back to Europe, World War II. And this should bring up the Europe page.
Okay, now, Bill Kosick. And again, we had an opportunity to interview him here today, and we will see his interview. And there's a bunch of, he brought you a bunch of pictures.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, and he's got a video too.
Yes, he does.
All right.
Yes, his pictures were quite interesting, and we did the video on him the same day.
Yeah. Okay, one other question for you.
Sure.
This is My Military Hero.
Yes.
I mentioned that veterans have a chance to interact with each other, and you're also putting together a My Military Buddy.
Yes.
How does that work?
Well, on that, I was driving to work one day, and I was thinking about the My Military Hero, and I got to thinking, you know what, I need to update my Facebook site. Then I thought, Facebook, why not not a Facebook page for the veterans, but a Facebook page, a Facebook-like page for the veterans, so that they could connect and either chat in real time with their keyboards, or do what we're working on now, which is include live video feeds, so that they can use like Skype or whatever to chat live, and we do that all for free.
Okay. So a fellow or a woman wants to connect with other veterans. They go ahead and put their username and password in there, which they can real easily establish.
Sure.
And then go in there and just start seeing who wants to talk to me.
Right.
Who wants to trade stories.
Exactly.
Who wants to, maybe I forgot where so and so is, or I lost track of so and so that I served with. You can find each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And we really think it's a neat way for the veterans to be able to connect, talk about old times and old war stories, and just give them an outlet to just enjoy their time in service together.
Super. Clyde Brubaker, you and some of your fellow soldiers actually get to share quite an honor, because while you're willing to tell your story to people one-on-one, now you get to share your story with a bigger audience because of this website. I noticed that in the last 10 years, World War II veterans have become much more willing to tell their stories. Have you noticed that too?
Well, yes, I think so. There were more than 16 million Americans in uniform during World War II. World War II veterans are dying at the rate of more than 1,000 a day.
Yeah.
As of now, there are fewer than 2 million. So people have begun to realize that a lot of history is being lost. The people who actually fought in World War II in another few years will all be gone.
Mm-hmm.
So most Americans are very eager to hear their stories.
You're 90 years old. We need to know this stuff.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, you were a pilot.
That's right.
You flew from London, and you flew 65 missions over mainland Europe.
Yes.
Between 1943 and 1944. And you have some metal to show for it, don't you?
That's correct.
Tell us what you're wearing.
I wear the Distinguished Flying Cross. The Distinguished Flying Cross was awarded after you completed 25 missions. I wear the Air Medal, which you were awarded after 5 missions. I have the Air Medal with 12 oak leaf clusters. After each additional 5 missions, instead of awarding you another Air Medal, they would award you what's called an oak leaf cluster.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Purple Heart is awarded when you're wounded in action. When you see a veteran wearing the Purple Heart, he's been where the action is.
Mm-hmm.
He's been where the shooting's been going on. So always honor, in particular, Purple Heart veterans.
How did you get injured?
Our first bombing mission was a power plant in Amoyden, Holland. And it was a low-level mission. That meant we were flying below 50 feet. And the theory of that was, as long as we stayed below 50 feet, the enemy radar wouldn't pick us up.
Mm-hmm.
So we took off from England. We dropped down onto the deck. There were 12 bombers. We flew across the North Sea, and in approximately an hour, we made landfall in Holland. And the flak we got was very light, so we had achieved the element of surprise. We reached our checkpoint, we made a turn left or north, and we could see the stacks of the power plant that was our target. We made another turn left toward the power plant, and on that mission I was riding co-pilot. The co-pilots were assigned the task of dropping the bombs. And I had a gun sight in front of me, and I had a triggering device, a little button to push to release the bombs.
Mm-hmm.
I was pressed up against the gun sight, and I saw the stacks of the power plant. I pushed the button to release the bombs after the bombardier, of course, opened the bomb doors.
Mm-hmm.
And in just an instant, there was a crash, and a shell came through the right side of the windshield. They used shells that would explode on contact, and that's what this was. And fragments hit me in the face, mostly the right side of the face, and knocked me over in my seat. I don't think I was unconscious, but I was stunned, and I was bleeding like a stuck pig. And some of the other crew members got me out of my seat back into the radio compartment. The pilot in the left seat didn't think he'd been hit, but by the time we got back to England, he was bleeding through his hat, but he was wasn't hurt badly enough that he was able to fly and get us back okay. But then there were always ambulances there to pick up the wounded, and they took me right to the hospital, and that was the story of my first mission.
That was your first mission. Clyde,
Right.
you still carry shrapnel around with you, don't you?
Right, yes.
Oof.
I cannot have an MRI because I have a piece of shrapnel in my right eye. The magnetic force of an MRI is so powerful it would rip it out of my eye and blind me. Wow. So anytime, if I have any problem with health problems, go to the hospital, I always am sure to tell them, X-ray me, but no MRI, or you'll blind me.
Then 64 more successful missions. Incredible.
Yes.
Will Tackett, in addition to being a veteran during the Korean War period, you also decided that you wanted to help put together this website to help veterans tell their stories. Why?
Yes, sir. Well, I tell you what, I found out a lot of these veterans go through their whole life and not tell their families or their friends anything about the war. And it's a shame when you see some. I lost 2 brother-in-laws, and they never talked to their families at all, told them what happened to them. And they did talk to me a little bit, but I said it's a shame that their children and grandchildren have not heard these stories. And so that's what we're hoping to do with this website. You know, you die twice. You die when you're physically dead, and then you die when people don't remember you no more, when there's no remembrance of you. With this site, I think we're going to get the word out and let them tell their stories on there where their families can have these for history.
It's a very interesting idea, and you guys are pulling this thing off very well.
Well, we haven't really got out into the public as much as we'd like to, and hopefully with this program here, we'll be able to get more people with stories. We've got a few stories now. My job on the site is working with the veterans, getting their stories, help them write them. A lot of them don't want to write or don't know how to write them properly, so I've helped them write them. And we had some cases where veterans that were killed in the service, their families didn't know too much about them, but I've tried to dig up as much as I can for them, and then write a story of my remembrance of these guys in school and that, and in the military, and put a story together, and it's something for their families still.
Yeah, speaking of stories, you've got stories of your own. And in fact, with visiting you a little bit earlier, I learned some things about post-World War II that I never knew before. You were, I mentioned the Korean War era. During that era, we were very concerned about the Russian fleet and where they might be in relation to the rest of the United States. And the Atlantic was crawling with Russians, wasn't it?
Yes, sir, that's true. And you know, nobody knew what was going to happen in this Korean War, how it may expand into, you know, getting in a fight with Russia. So we wanted to know where their submarines were. We found out that they had submarines was up our east coast, and a lot of people didn't know that, but we were close to our east coast. And all we did, I was in a submarine aircraft. We had they called it a hunter-killer aircraft, made by Grumman Aircraft. One of them had radar, and one of them had the ammunition and the depth charges and torpedoes. We used homing torpedoes. So, and the one I was in was radar, and we would track the submarines, and we used sonobuoys, a sounding device. They'd drop in the water, and I could check in on each channel of these things and pinpoint exactly where that submarine was. Then we could radio in the other aircraft, the killer aircraft. He could drop homing torpedoes, and these homing torpedoes might circle around the submarine, and it'll finally come up to where they get the submarine. We never had no encounters other than they knew that we knew where they were at all times. And that's what we were trying to do, let them know that they're being watched, and that's what we were.
Yeah, and you were probably accompanying an aircraft carrier, or you were in the vicinity of one, and they needed to know where these subs were, didn't they?
Yes, sir. They had some harrowing experiences. We had a terrible storm, and I was up on a flight deck with this chief, and he was worried about the aircraft breaking loose from their mooring lines, and we had to get some guys up to re-tie them down and tie them down good. But about 2 o'clock in the morning, I was pretty seasick from the ship. We was taking water over the bow, and about 2 o'clock in the morning, our air crewman had to get ready to launch for a mission. And it was 2 o'clock, and we got in the aircraft and used catapults to launch us off. And we circled around looking for the subs, you know, and on our mission. And we became lost from the killer aircraft. And he had the long-range radar. Ours was only good for 50 miles. And so we got lost. The pilot was getting very concerned, and I said, well, I'm not picking up nothing on the radar, not a thing. And he said, you see the carrier? I said, no, we must be a long way from the carrier. So we were getting close to running out of fuel, and they predicted that if you went down in that Atlantic, you'd probably survive 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So we had exposure suits we wore, heavy rubber suits, and then like long johns and some other underwear type stuff that would keep you alive for about 30 minutes. But we were really getting concerned, and finally the ship's radar picked us up and victored us in. The happiest day of my life when we landed. So we were really sweating it out.
And then you went on from the Navy
Yes, sir,
to the Air Force.
I went on after I got out of the Navy. I knew I didn't want any more sea duty. I had enough of that. So I said, I still like the aviation. I still want to stay in something. So I thought about the Navy Reserve, and then I thought, well, I think I'll try the Air Force. So that's what I did, and I became a munitions man in the Air Force and worked on missiles, special weapons, nuclear weapons, rockets, and all the stuff that goes with the munitions. And I stayed with them until 1985. I had 37 years of total service. But it was good. The service was good for me. I got good training, got good benefits from it. It was really rewarding.
Well, thanks not only for this interview, but for your work with the other veterans, too.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bill, you have a most interesting story to tell about post-World War II activity. You were just 18 years old
Yes.
in 1946.
Yes.
And in 1946, the war was just ended, and you had the most interesting assignment because you went to Nuremberg, Germany. For what?
Actually, we were part of the War Crimes Commission. My boss was Chief Deputy Judge Advocate for War Crimes, Cleo Strait. And we were located in Wiesbaden, Germany. But we did assist the International Tribunal in Nuremberg.
And what were you doing?
Well, today we didn't have a title in my particular area. When I first started with the war crimes, I was assigned to the prosecution section as a, what do you call it, a reader, you see, a proofreader for the defense lawyers in the Malmedy massacre. And we would make sure, you see, that there were no mistakes on the documents or anything. And we would send material, you see, to the War Department in Washington, D.C.
So you were really an analyst, I guess. You had to take
now they call them analysts.
Yeah, written information and make sure that it was verifiable to turn over to the prosecutor.
Yes.
And give us an idea of some of these Germans that were being prosecuted.
Well, in the Malmedy massacre, Joseph Sepp Dietrich, who was the commander, and he was a butcher when he was on the Eastern Front. They called him Blowtorch Commander because when they came to a city, you see, they would either bombard everything, just completely destroy the city, or they would gather the citizens and what was left in the city because the young ones went with the Polish army or the Russian army, and the civilians were left there, so they would gather the children and the wives, you see, and the old men, and they would put them into a barn and riddle the barn with machine gun fire and put gasoline all around the building and burn them, you see, burn them alive. And the only ones that would survive that had some sense how to protect themselves, they would either drop to the ground or get into the hayloft, you see. And when the Germans left, then they would jump out, you see, and that's the way they survived.
Did you also have any experience in uncovering the truth of what might happen at Dachau and some of the other concentration camps? Yes,
I was in Dachau 3 times. I was assigned to headquarters in Wiesbaden, but one day the adjutant for Strait, Colonel Strait, came in and said, Kosich, he said, John wants you to go to Dachau. Would you go? I said, yeah, I'll go because I wanted to see, you know, Dachau. And the other, I worked on all of the, what they called top 5 concentration camps Mauthausen, Auschwitz, Dachau, Nordhausen, and Buchenwald.
Marshall Kassebaum, it was really a natural for you to get involved with Michael Morgan on this project because actually you'd had experience developing a website before, when you were a teacher, bringing veterans and children together to learn from one another.
Yes, that website is called Project Vets, Veterans Educate Today's Students, and the whole idea of the project was to bring veterans into the classroom and so that the veterans can then educate the students because so many of these stories are being lost. And so my goal was for the veterans to teach my students, and the students then in turn, they would value those stories and share them with the community, but also to develop a really good relationship with the veterans because they're at this age, 4th grade, where they can really understand and appreciate what these men and women have done for our country and to protect our freedoms. So that was the real focus on the Project Vets.
You're regional superintendent of schools now, but you were a career teacher.
Yes.
And during like the last 10 years of your teaching, you would have these Veterans Day
tributes.
Tributes, yeah, where the whole community would come together and honor the veterans.
For the last 10
kids.
years,
Yeah.
actually 11, and so when the veterans would come into the classroom and the students would interview them and the veterans would share stories that were appropriate for children, of course, then they would take that information and create like PowerPoint presentations and poems and songs and honor them during near Veterans Day. And so we've been doing that for the last 11 years. And my goal now as regional superintendent is to help other school districts design a program like this. And my website is also designed for that reason, to help teachers set up programs, a step-by-step process of what you can do.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Marcia.
Well, thank you, Mark.
Yeah. And also, our thanks go to Will and to Michael as well, the 3 principals for putting these websites together. Remember, that's My Military Hero and My Military Buddy. And by going to those websites, you can connect with veteran stories and other veterans if you're a veteran. With another Illinois story in Hillsborough, I'm Mark McDonald. Thanks for watching.
Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you. For a DVD copy of the program you've just seen, send $19.95 to Network Knowledge, P.O. Box 6248, Springfield, Illinois 62708. Be sure to include the program name, subject, and when the program aired. You can also order with your credit card by calling 800-232-3605.